The house smelled like rosemary and safety until Lily whispered, "Don't drink that glass of water." Her hand trembled, but her eyes didn't. I smiled, pretended to sip, and slid the glass away. Conversation limped on, brittle and bright. Then the color drained from another face, and a chair scraped hard. By the time the EMTs stepped through my door, I knew this much. My granddaughter's small warning had been the only shield in that room.
"Grandpa, don't eat that!" Lily's voice split the evening like lightning. The fork shook in my hand above my good china. Outside, a cool October breeze pressed against the windows of my little ranch house on the edge of Austin. Inside, mesquite and rosemary lingered from the brisket I had coaxed all afternoon. The table was set the way my late wife liked it. A linen runner, mismatched blue plates, the quilted potholder Lily made in 4th grade. Yellow light warmed the room, yet a colder thread slid through it, an unseen draft that made the hairs rise on my arms. I am Thomas Miller, 69, retired electrician, keeper of this house and the stories nailed into its beams. To my left sat Lily, 13, knees knocking under her chair, a bright kid with a braid like a bookmark and eyes that read people faster than books. Her hand hovered near my plate, trembling. She wouldn't meet my gaze. She stared at the meat as if it might move. Across from me was my son, Michael, 40, shoulders hunched like a man who sleeps with his jaw clenched. He used to laugh with his whole chest. Lately, his smile rarely makes it past his teeth. Beside him sat his wife, Vivian Cross, immaculate as a showroom kitchen. Her lipstick never smudged, her hair never wandered, and her sentences arrived sugar-dusted and perfectly measured. Vivian had brought a bowl of gravy she insisted I try. She nudged the salt cellar a fraction, aligned the knives, adjusted my napkin with gentle authority, and barely tasted her own food. On my right sat Marlene Cross, Vivian's mother, early 70s, silver hair swept back, a woman who hums hymns when she doesn't know what to say. Marlene shows up with casseroles and asks about your knees like she truly cares. She wore a cardigan the color of chamomile and a necklace Lily strung when she was 6. When Lily whispered, Marlene patted my sleeve. "She's been anxious lately, Henry," she said, kind, apologetic, as if worry were a phase to outgrow. Her fork clicked, steady, and she took a generous bite. As host, I carved the brisket myself, laid out green beans with toasted almonds, mashed potatoes whipped light, and a basket of cornbread sweating butter through a cloth. The doorbell cam had chimed earlier, neighbors walking their dogs beneath pin oaks. Now the only sound was the air conditioner's hum and the clink of glass. Lily's knee bumped mine. "Grandpa, please," she breathed. I set down my fork. "Marlene, let's swap seats," I said, keeping my tone easy. "That vent is blowing right on my neck. The other side's warmer." Vivian's hand paused midair, a short static glitch. "Not necessary," she said, smiling. Marlene was already rising. "If it helps," she murmured, swapping chairs with a patience that has steadied me through holidays and storms. Our plates traded places with us. I slid beside Lily, and her shoulder eased under my palm. "You're safe," I told her, though my mouth went dry saying it. Conversation tiptoed on. Michael asked about the Longhorns. Vivian described a neighbor's fence like it were news. I tasted almost nothing. Every nerve I owned sat up listening. 15 minutes later, Marlene's fork slipped. "Oh," she whispered. The color left her cheeks. A sheen gathered at her temple. She swayed, eyes searching for a horizon that wasn't there. I caught her before she fell. "Call 911, I said. My voice sounded like my father's. Lily clutched my sleeve, and the house seemed to hold its breath with me. Sirens stitched the night as paramedics shouldered through my door. Lily clung to my sleeve. Marlene lay pale on the rug, cardigan skewed, breath thin. The crew moved with quiet precision, oxygen, cuff, questions, steady hands against a trembling room. Michael hovered, repeating our address to no one now on the line. Vivian stood a step back, composed, palms folded like she was waiting for a photograph to be taken. I answered what I could. Dizziness, sudden, during dinner. I didn't mention the way Lily's fingers had pressed crescent moons into my wrist, or how the gravy Vivian brought glistened darker than mine. Those thoughts stayed behind my teeth, where fear had already settled. They lifted Marlene, strapped her in, wheels rattling over the threshold. I climbed into the ambulance before anyone could object. Through the rear window, our porch light smeared across Michael's face. Lily was small beside him, a shadow in high tops. Vivian's outline didn't move. Barton Creek Medical Center was all bright air and polished floors, a chill that erased the scent of mesquite still in my shirt. They took Marlene through double doors. A nurse parked me in a row of vinyl chairs under a muted weather report. Michael and Lily arrived moments later, wind in their hair, worry on their faces. Vivian followed, smoothing her blouse, thanking the registrar with that fine, practiced smile. A young doctor asked for the beginning and the middle. I gave him both. She felt dizzy, then went out. She'd been eating. Any new medications, supplements, changes in diet? None I knew. Vivian stepped in carefully, voice warm. Healthier choices lately. Less salt, more greens, nothing drastic. Her tone said helpful, her eyes said control. The doctor nodded, disappeared. Time stretched into the hum of vending machines and the beep of monitors behind the wall. Lily sat folded small, braid looped between her fingers. Michael rubbed his jaw raw, eyes on a stain in the tile as if it might answer for him. On the far chair, Vivian crossed her ankles, posture immaculate, expression arranged into concern that didn't crease. I watched her not watch Lily. I watched Michael look to her before standing, then sit because she didn't. Little things that made larger shapes when stacked. A nurse brought water we didn't drink. A security guard ambled by, nodding hello like this was a train station and not a night people would remember forever. I kept thinking of my fork suspended over China and the way Lily's voice had split the evening clean in two. When the doctor returned, his face was careful. Stable for now, observing overnight, fluids, monitoring. Words meant to calm, not to answer. He asked if anyone else felt unwell. 3 faces turned toward me. I shook my head. Lily's sneaker tapped twice, then went still. Michael stood to try the doors to the unit. A nurse sent him back with a patient smile. Vivian took a clipboard, filled boxes without looking down, each stroke neat, tidy, final. She was very good at looking in control of the uncontrollable. Another hour slid past. The TV cycled weather, traffic, a high school football score. Lily edged closer, shoulder brushing mine. Her breath warmed the back of my hand. She didn't cry. She didn't need to. Her quiet was louder than sirens. "Grandpa," she whispered finally, barely a sound, more a decision taking shape. "Can I stay with you tonight?" I nodded before the question finished leaving her lips. "Yes," I said, "you're with me tonight." Michael didn't argue. His shoulders sagged with relief or surrender, I couldn't tell. Vivian's smile thinned. She murmured something about school and routines, then stepped aside as if the decision were hers to allow. We left the hospital to the hum of fluorescent lights and the soft beep of machines that had nothing to say. At home, the house breathed like it always did after dark, floorboards settling, the porch light catching moths in slow, drowsy spirals. I made tea, neither of us touched. Lily curled into the end of the couch, knees to chest, braid loosened by worry. The quilt my wife stitched years ago lay across her shins, bright triangles softened by time. I turned off the TV. The room felt honest without it. She didn't start with a story. She started with a breath, long and tremoring, as if she had been underwater and finally found air. "Over the past few months," she said, "Mom's been different. Calls behind closed doors. Words like complications and timing. Questions to Lily that were not questions but fishing lines. What I ate, what pills I took, whether I ever forgot the stove, if I ever felt foggy after dinner. Small hooks, carefully baited. Sometimes Lily walked past the kitchen and saw Vivian stirring a cup too long, watching the swirl like it could give answers. Sometimes she caught pieces of browser tabs over his shoulder, articles about symptoms in older adults, stories of natural causes, threads about guardianship and wills. Nothing illegal in a single glance, but together they formed the shape of a shadow that didn't move with the light. There were other nights. The one where I went home early after just a little dessert and woke before dawn sicker than I could explain, chalked up to a bug. The afternoon I felt faint at their place, and Vivian tutted about hydration while pressing another glass into my hand. Lily said she wanted to speak then. Fear sat on her chest. She told me if I made trouble, Lily whispered, eyes on the quilt seams, I'd be sent away, a program, somewhere far, for focus. I listened like a student, still. Angry spiked through grief, then gave way to something steadier. Vivian was building a case as much as a plan. A narrative of a forgetful old man who couldn't manage a house, who'd be better looked after, whose affairs should be streamlined. She had even floated the words "update the will" to Michael, Lily said, like a helpful neighbor offering to clear leaves. "Did Dad know?" I asked, careful. "I don't know," Lily said. "He looked tired, like he didn't want to know." We sat with that. Outside, a train wailed from far off, the sound pulling a thread through the night. I thought about the picture on the mantel, Michael at 12 with grass-stained knees, my hand on his shoulder, how a boy can become a man in the spaces where no one is watching. I tucked the quilt tighter around Lily's legs. "You did the brave thing," I said. "You told me." Her chin trembled, but she nodded. "I was scared you'd be mad." "I'm mad," I said, "but not at you." Silence again, gentler this time. I stood, crossed to the old roll-top desk, and slid open the drawer that sticks in damp weather. My notebook lay where I always leave it, next to a handful of stamps and a business card I hadn't looked at in years. I clicked a pen. Dates, times, who was in the room, what was said, what was felt. Memory is a generous friend until it isn't. Paper does not forget. "We're going to be careful," I said, "and we're going to be smart." Lily watched my hand move, some of the tightness leaving her shoulders with each line I wrote. It wasn't a plan yet, but it was a shape. Proof first, then everything else. My phone buzzed on the table, shivering the wood. Vivian's name bloomed on the screen. I let it ring, then ring again. On the third call, I picked up and said nothing. Morning slid into the kitchen in a pale ribbon, and the house felt like it was holding its breath with me. Lily slept on the couch, one arm flung over her eyes, the quilt rising and falling in small, steady waves. I made coffee I didn't drink. I needed a plan before Vivian made hers stick. I opened the old roll-top desk and pulled out my notebook. Dates, times, names. I wrote down every fragment from last night as if a jury were reading over my shoulder. The phone records, the browser glimpses, the questions about pills, the nights I went home early and woke sick. Ink steadied my hands better than coffee ever could. At 8 sharp I called Peter Nguyen. He answered on the second ring, voice gravelly, alert. "Henry?" "I need you today," I said. "It's about family, money, and something that could get me killed." He didn't waste breath. "Come in at 10. Bring whatever you've written. And Thomas, eat only what you prepare yourself. Keep notes. If anyone pressures you about your will or guardianship, tell me first." "I hear you," I said. My throat felt raw with the truth in it. I left Lily sleeping and stepped onto the porch. The air was October thin. Across the street, Ethel Brooks swept oak leaves off her walk in slow, stubborn arcs. Ethel has lived here longer than the sidewalks. She knows every dog, every license plate, every story we don't tell out loud. "Morning, Ethel." She straightened, saw my face, and put the broom down. "What happened?" "Company dinner turned bad. Marlene's at Barton Creek. Lily's with me." Ethel's eyes sharpened. "What do you need?" "A lookout. If you see anyone tossing things in my trash or hustling me into a car when I look off, call it in. If I ask you to hold something for me, you hold it and don't ask why." She nodded once. "Done. And Henry, you're not alone." Back inside, Lily was awake, that brave kind of tired kids wear after a storm. We sat at the table, the notebook between us. "I talked to Mr. Nguyen," I said. "He'll help with the legal side. Our job is to be careful and to make a record. If I say, stars are out early, that means you go to Ethel's and stay until I call. If you're scared, you don't hide it to protect me. You tell me, and we leave." She breathed out, a small relief. "What about Dad?" "We'll give your father a chance to be the man I remember," I said, "but we won't bet our safety on it." We practiced being ordinary. I shuffled when I walked. I repeated a question once or twice. I let a silence sit too long and watched how it changed the room. The roll tasted sour in my mouth, but it was mine now. Let them think I couldn't keep my days straight. Let them get sloppy. At 9:40, my phone buzzed. Vivian. The name on the screen looked as tidy as her handwriting. I let it ring once, twice, 3 times, then picked up. I kept my voice woolly around the edges, like a sweater that's been worn too many winters. "Henry," she chirped, bright as a kitchen light. "How are you feeling this morning? I was thinking I could swing by with something to settle your stomach, and maybe we finally talk about your will." The pencil in my hand stopped moving. I smiled into the phone and let the silence stretch, then said, "Come over. Bring your tea."
Vivian arrived just after noon, the kind of punctual that makes a knock sound rehearsed. Lily was in her room with the door ajar, a pencil scratching homework that could wait. I opened the door and let the smell of jasmine perfume drift past me like a flag. Vivian carried a tray, a blue mug, a saucer with 2 butter cookies, a folded napkin crisp as a checkmark. "I brought something to settle your stomach," she said, breezy and bright, chamomile with a touch of honey. She set the tray on my coffee table and arranged it until it looked like a photo. The mug steamed a little. I leaned over it, smiling, the way you smile at a neighbor's new baby. Heat rose with an herbal sweetness and a faint, unfriendly edge, like pennies left in rain. "Thank you," I said, letting my voice creak with gratitude. I lifted the mug, tasted the rim with my lips, tipped it just enough to wet my tongue, then lowered it again. I swallowed nothing. My heart still drummed. Vivian watched my face the way a storm watches a field. "Better?" she asked. "Maybe," I said. My hand trembled as if on cue. I let my shoulders slump. The room tilted a notch, then 2. It didn't, not really, but I gave it permission.
"Do you need to lie down?" Her voice was tender. Her eyes were not. I nodded, stood, and let my knees soften. The couch caught me. Lily appeared in the doorway, pale, already moving. "I'm here," I told her, and let my eyes slip half-closed. Minutes stretched. Vivian checked her watch. She told Lily to bring a blanket, to fetch water, to give Grandpa some space. The mug sat on the table, its steam thinning into a thread. "I'm calling 911, Lily said, voice steady. "Wait," Vivian answered, almost gentle. "Let's see if he rallies. These episodes can pass." I breathed shallow, counting, feeling my own pulse like a metronome. "It tastes bitter," I murmured, audible enough for an imaginary chart, "like metal." Vivian flinched, microscopic. "That's just the herbs, Henry." "It doesn't feel right," Lily said, eyes on me, hand on her phone. I let another 30 seconds crawl by, then let my head lull. "Call," I whispered. The siren stitched back into our street, a familiar needle. Medics lifted me, asked questions, read my vitals, wrote them down. "What preceded the episode?" one asked. "Tea my daughter-in-law made," I said, foggy but clear. "Bitter. Metallic." The pen moved. A cuff whispered against my arm. Lily squeezed my fingers, an anchor. Vivian hovered, correcting nothing, suggesting rest, emphasizing my recent confusion. She thanked the crew too sweetly. The mug cooled, untouched, the cookies still perfect on their plate. By the time the room quieted, the medics decided transport wasn't necessary. Vital stable. Observe at home. Hydrate. Call if things changed. They left a brochure and the smell of latex. Ethel watched from across the street through her lace curtains, phone in hand, eyes narrowed, counting minutes. Vivian walked me to the hallway, like a hostess seeing off last guests. "Henry," she said softly, "this house is too much for you right now. Come stay with us a while, just until you're better. We have a room on the first floor. It's safer. Lily can be upstairs, close. We'll handle meals, medications, everything." Lily looked at me, eyes clear now, breath held. I steadied myself on the doorframe and let the quiet answer first. "All right," I said, as if the word belonged to her. We turned off the main road into a maze of new houses, all angles and careful plantings, mailboxes matching like uniforms. Vivian parked in the driveway and opened my door before I could reach the handle. Lemon cleaner and something colder greeted me at the threshold. Their foyer was staged the way model homes are. A console table with a bowl of perfect shells, a framed print that said family in a font that meant control. She showed me my room on the first floor. The window faced a fence so close I could read the grain. The bed was pushed where you couldn't see it from the hall. A chair sat under the vent, a throw folded square as a promise. No stairs, Vivian said, pleased. Safer. Lily's room, she added, would be upstairs so she can rest. Every word sounded like a gate clicking shut. Dinner was light, a tray curated to the ounce. Broth, crackers, a pale tea. Vivian hovered like a flight attendant, narrating care. We'll manage your meals, Henry. Hydration, schedule, all of it. I've organized your pills in this. She set down a plastic weekly box, labels crisp, my name in her careful hand. Just so there's no confusion. Michael passed the salt and didn't meet my eyes. "How's Marlene?" I asked. "Staying overnight," he said. Relief and dread wrestled in his voice. When Lily reached for my hand under the table, Vivian noticed and suggested Lily finish upstairs homework for tomorrow. Lily's fingers tightened once, then slipped away. After they turned off the downstairs lights, the house settled into its perfect quiet. I lay awake with my shoes on, the vent above me whispering the upstairs like a telephone. Their bedroom was directly over mine. The ductwork carried more than air. At first, it was the low rhythm of voices. Then words separated. "How long is this going to take, Michael?" "Not long, Vivian. She's weaker. The confusion helps. Papers tomorrow, then we're done." I don't like this. A scrape, a small thud, a man pacing. "You don't have to like it," she said, soft steel. "You have to see it through. You want to keep living like this, paycheck to paycheck while he sits on a house he doesn't need?" Silence stretched. The vent clicked. "What about Lily?" he asked, so quiet I almost missed it. "She'll adapt," Vivian answered. "We'll do what's best for her. Boarding, structure. No more questions." I breathed through my teeth, steady, the way you breathe when you're on a ladder and can't look down. In the dark, the ceiling fan sketched a slow halo. I thought of the photo in my wallet, Michael at 12 grinning through a missing tooth. I thought of Lily's hand under the table. My phone face down on the nightstand buzzed once the time check I'd set. I flipped it and typed with my thumb, the code Lily and I chose curled inside a normal sentence. "Ethel, stars are out early. If you see anything off, ring me." "Tyler, can you swing by tomorrow morning? Doorbell app's been glitchy." 3 dots popped from Tyler almost at once. "Got you. Be there at 8. Ethel replied with a heart and the word watching. Upstairs, floorboards creaked toward the hall. Footsteps paused above the vent, then moved. Vivian's voice floated down, thinner, sharpened by distance. "Tomorrow, Michael. No more delays." I turned the phone face down again and stared at the ceiling until the fan blurred. "Tomorrow," I whispered back, to no one and to everyone. "Then we end this. Together." The doorbell chimed at 8 on the dot. Through the frosted glass, I saw a brown box and a baseball cap delivery uniform enough to make any HOA proud. Tyler Kim lifted the package in a friendly half-salute when I opened up. "Morning, Mr. Miller," he said, voice easy. Ethel stood across the street with her broom, paused midair, catching my eye, giving the smallest nod, watching. Vivian had stepped out to check on Mom, a note on the counter announced in tidy script. Michael sat at the kitchen island, scrolling through nothing, a mug cooling untouched. Lily drifted down the stairs with her notebook against her chest, trying to be small. The house felt staged again, but this time the props were on our side. Tyler came in like a neighbor with time to kill. "Thought I'd take a quick look at that doorbell app you mentioned," he said, loud enough for Michael, casual as lawn talk. He set the box down, pulled out nothing threatening, just his phone, and smiled at Lily like they shared a science project. We stood in the entry by the console table that said family. Tyler gestured to my phone. I handed it over. "You still want me to," he started, then caught my glance and switched lanes. "Just clean up the login, make sure your notifications show up when someone rings, that kind of thing." "App's been glitchy," I said. "Old dog, new tricks." He worked quietly, thumb swift, then turned the screen so I could see. "Here's the timeline of yesterday's rings and motion alerts," he said, tone light. "Looks like a lot of activity around noon and again late afternoon." We both knew what that meant. Neither of us said it. He tapped once more. "I added a shared view for your neighbor, with your permission." He looked up. I nodded. Ethel lowered her broom and pretended to chase a leaf. Peter Nguyen had texted at dawn, "Keep everything within the law. Document, don't provoke." Tyler had that message in his eyes too. He didn't install anything new. He didn't hide anything. He simply made what was already there work as intended, and he showed me how to save what mattered so it wouldn't disappear into updates. Lily handed him a post-it. "Our code," she whispered. Tyler read the little phrase, "Stars are out early," then set an alert so it would ping his phone and Ethel's if I sent it. He explained it all to me twice, plain and slow, so if anyone asked later, I could repeat it without tripping. Also, he said, lowering his voice just enough to keep it ours, "Use this voice memo on your phone if anyone pressures you. Texas is friendly to that." He didn't say more. He didn't have to. There was one more thing to do. I slid open the pantry and lifted a grocery bag I'd tied shut. Inside, last afternoon's mug and napkin sat exactly as we'd left them. No lectures, no lab notes, just the quiet truth of a cooling cup. I walked it to the porch. Ethel crossed the street, set her broom aside, and took the bag with the care of a nurse. "For Detective Morales when she asks," I said. Untouched. Ethel's mouth thinned. She nodded once. "I'll keep it safe." Back inside, the house clock clicked toward 10. Michael cleared his throat. "Viv said she'd be back before lunch," he offered, like a weather report. He didn't look at me when he added, "She wants to talk paperwork." "Peter wants to talk too," I said, "tomorrow morning." The words fit the room like furniture finally in the right place. Tyler finished, handed my phone back, and clapped my shoulder. "You're set," he said, louder now. "Ping me if the app acts up." He winked at Lily. "Science fair, remember?" Then he left through a door that had felt like a trap last night and felt like a hinge today. Silence settled. The refrigerator hummed. A car door thudded in the driveway. Through the vent, a voice floated in from the garage, sharpened by a space meant to hold secrets. "Today," Vivian said into her phone, "no more delays." Vivian came at 4, punctual as a metronome, with a tray balanced on one palm. A mug, a folded napkin, 2 cookies aligned like buttons. "Chamomile," she said, voice warm enough to melt wax. "Good for your nerves." The house was hushed. Lily worked upstairs. Michael had run an errand. It felt arranged. I set my phone on the end table, screen down, the way Tyler taught me. 2 taps, and a tiny red memory began to breathe under glass. Vivian placed the mug before me and waited, hands nested, smile steady. Steam rose with a gentle sweetness, and under it a hard edge, a scent I could not name, but that my body recognized. I lifted the cup, let the rim touch my lip, tilted just enough to wet my tongue, then set it down. Swallowed nothing. Let my hand tremble. "Better?" she asked, studying my face, not my answer. "Maybe," I said, letting my shoulders sag. "Feels odd, bitter, metallic." Her lashes flickered. "Sometimes taste changes with age," she said lightly, "and after what happened, your senses are on high alert." She reached for the napkin and adjusted it, a tiny choreography to use up the seconds. "Henry, we should talk about your will. It's important to have clarity." "For Lily, for Michael, for you." I watched the mug cool. "Peter's coming in the morning," I said. "We can talk then." Her smile thinned a hair. "Peter is old school. Michael knows someone more current. We could do a simple update today, just to avoid complications." She tilted her head, sympathy polished to a shine. "You've had episodes. What if something happens before you get to the lawyer?" "Before tomorrow?" I asked. She held my gaze one beat too long. "There might not be a tomorrow," she said, then blinked, softened. "I only mean life is unpredictable." The room listened with me. I could hear the refrigerator hum, the wall clock tick, the faint breath of the vent above my chair. I lifted the cup again, gave her the picture she wanted. Another small sip, my throat working, the mug returning to the coaster like a loaded word. "What exactly are you asking me to sign?" I said. "Guardianship language," she answered quickly, then slower, "and structuring assets so they're managed responsibly. The house, accounts, utilities. You shouldn't worry about any of that." "So you and Michael would manage everything?" I said, gentle as a question can be. "For Lily," she said. "For all of us." I nodded as if reassured and glanced at the door. "Let's do it the right way," I said. "Tomorrow, here. With witnesses. With Peter." I gave her back the word witnesses and let it sit between us. She smoothed her skirt, regrouped. "Of course, if that makes you comfortable." Her eyes slid to the mug. "In the meantime, finish your tea. It will help you rest." I pushed the cup a fraction away. "I will," I said, and didn't. Her phone buzzed. She rose, turned toward the kitchen, voice lowering to a thread that the vent kindly carried back. "Today," she whispered, "no more delays." I watched the doorway until her shadow moved. On the table, the tiny red light under my phone still breathed. The mug sat where she left it, cooling like a fuse. Upstairs, Lily's footsteps paused, listening for a cue only we could hear. The doorbell chimed at 8 sharp, bright as a pin in cloth. I was already in the armchair by the window, phone face down, the little red pulse alive beneath the glass. Vivian stepped from the kitchen, drying a spotless hand. "Expecting someone?" "Peter," I said, "my lawyer." She smiled like a porch light. "So early?" I opened the door. Peter Nguyen stood with his leather folio and a calm that knew where it was going. Beside him, a woman in plain clothes, hair pulled back, badge at her belt. "Mr. Miller," Peter said, "and this is Detective Carla Morales. She specializes in elder financial matters. I asked her to observe." Vivian's smile thinned. "Is that necessary?" Peter's voice stayed soft. "Given recent health concerns and the topic of estate planning, it's prudent." Michael drifted in from the hallway, rubbing sleep from his face. "What's going on?" "Just making sure we do things properly," I said, letting a little wool into the words. We settled in the living room, morning light laying clean lines across the rug. Detective Morales placed a small recorder on the coffee table, in plain view, and met each of our eyes. "This is for accuracy," she said. "Cross. Mr. Miller, I'm here as a witness while Mr. Nguyen reviews documents with his client. I'll also ask a few routine questions about safety and capacity." Vivian crossed an ankle over the other, hands immaculate in her lap. "Of course, we want what's best for Henry." Peter opened his folio but didn't pull papers yet. "Before any signatures, I need to hear from you, Henry. In your own words, how have you been feeling?" I looked at the rim of the side table, at the hairline scratch my wife left with a vase years ago. "Lightheaded sometimes," I said. "Confused after episodes. Yesterday I tasted something strange in my tea, bitter, metallic." I let the words sit. There was talk of waiting before calling 911. A tiny muscle flickered in Vivian's jaw. Michael found the floor with his eyes. Detective Morales's pen moved once. "Who prepared the tea?" "I did," Vivian answered quickly. "Chamomile with honey. He's been anxious." "And after Mr. Miller's spell," the detective continued, "who cleaned up the cup?" "I did," Vivian said. "I didn't think. I was straightening up before the medics." Peter lifted a hand. "We don't need to debate that now. What matters is clarity. Thomas wishes to review his will tomorrow, with counsel, here, with witnesses. No changes today." "Today," Vivian echoed, too fast, then softened. "Of course, tomorrow is fine." Detective Morales turned to me. "Mr. Miller, do you feel pressured to make decisions about your estate right now?" "I feel hurried," I said. "I'd like to slow down." A shadow crossed the front window. The doorbell chimed again. I stood, slower than I felt, and opened the door to Ethel Brooks, breath puffing in the cool. She held a grocery bag like it might bruise. "Morning, Henry. Forgive the intrusion." Her eyes slid to the detective. "You must be Ms. Morales. I believe you asked for anything that might help." Inside the bag, porcelain clinked softly. Ethel held the grocery bag like it might bruise and set it gently on the coffee table. Detective Morales slipped on nitrile gloves, glanced at me, then at Vivian. "Thank you, Miss Brooks," she said. "We'll document and secure this." Vivian's smile held, but her eyes did not. Morales opened the bag, revealing the blue mug, the folded napkin, the quiet story of yesterday cooling to silence. She photographed, labeled, sealed, every motion slow enough for anyone to follow. "Chain of custody," she said, not looking up, "basic stuff." Vivian crossed one leg over the other. "That isn't necessary, is it?" she asked, tone feather light. "Necessary is my middle name," Morales replied, and her half-smile took the sting out of it. She turned to me. "Mr. Miller, has anyone suggested you sign paperwork while you felt unwell?" "Yesterday," I said. "Today, too, but I asked to wait for my lawyer." Her pen moved. "Mrs. Cross, why did you clean the cup before medics arrived?" "The living room was a mess," Vivian said smoothly. "I was tidying for them." "Did Mr. Miller mention a strange taste?" "He's been anxious," she said. "Taste changes with age." Michael stared at his shoes as if the laces might answer for him. I heard Lily on the stairs, then the soft decision of her feet turning back. Morales lifted her gaze to me again. "Any similar episodes in recent weeks?" "Two," I said. "I blamed bad food. I shouldn't have." She nodded once, then addressed the room. "Here's what happens next," she said. "I'm sending this to the lab now. We'll also collect anything relevant you wish to provide voluntarily. No surprises, no fishing." She looked to me. "Mr. Miller, may I see your doorbell timeline for yesterday?" I handed her my phone. Tyler's clean screen showed motion pings at noon and near 4. Vivian shifted. "Those apps misread all the time," she said lightly. "Wind, cats, whatever." "They can," Morales agreed, "which is why we pair them with human statements and hospital records." Michael cleared his throat. "Is Marlene okay?" he asked, voice sanded down. "Stable," I said. "They're watching her kidneys and waiting." Vivian's hands stayed folded so tightly the knuckles whitened. Morales capped the evidence bag and set it beside her recorder. "For everyone's peace of mind," she said, "no one prepares food or drink for Mr. Miller today except Mr. Miller. Agreed?" I nodded. Michael nodded too, still staring at the floor. Vivian smiled without showing teeth. "Of course," she said, "whatever keeps everyone comfortable." Morales stood. "I'm stepping outside to arrange the courier," she said. "We'll have preliminary screening soon." She paused at the doorway and looked back at Vivian. "When it comes back, Mrs. Cross," she added gently, "we'll talk again." The front door closed behind her with a soft seal. Morning light slid across the sealed bag like a second signature. Vivian exhaled, the first sound she'd made that wasn't a word. "This is getting dramatic," she said, aiming for a laugh and missing. "It's getting careful," I answered. "That's different." Peter closed his folio. "We'll reconvene when the detective returns," he said. "Until then, no discussions of signatures." Michael slipped into the kitchen, the faucet running for longer than water needs. Vivian stayed, eyes on me, smile reassembled, a mask put back on in plain sight. The house listened. Outside, a delivery truck coughed, then idled. Inside, the clock ticked toward a verdict none of us could hurry. When the bell finally rang again, it sounded like the start of a sentence. We all turned toward the door. The door opened on Detective Morales, wind at her back and purpose in her step. A courier in a polo waited on the porch. She handed him the sealed bag with the mug, took a signed slip, then closed us back into our quiet living room. "We have preliminary screening from yesterday's sample," she said, eyes moving from me to Vivian. "It indicates a non-food contaminant consistent with a toxic compound. It's not conclusive yet, but it's enough to proceed with caution." Her tone stayed even, like a level held to a wall. Vivian's smile didn't make it to her eyes. "Screenings make mistakes," she said lightly. "They do," Morales agreed. "Which is why we pair results with timing and witness accounts." She set my phone on the table. "Mr. Miller shared his doorbell timeline. Motion was recorded around noon yesterday at your father-in-law's door, and again at 4, moments before tea was served. No other visitors. Miss Brooks?" Ethel stepped in from the entryway where she'd been hovering, hands folded around her broom like a staff. Yesterday, just before the medics came, I saw Mrs. Cross step onto Henry's porch with a cup, then walk to his bin in a hurry and toss something in. I went over after the ambulance left and took the cup into safekeeping. She looked at me, softening, like we discussed. Vivian's jaw tightened. "You invaded our privacy?" she snapped. "You created a scene." Ethel replied, not unkind. Morales raised a hand. "Mrs. Cross, we also have Mr. Miller's medical notes from the EMTs, reported bitter, metallic taste preceding his episode, and your request to wait before calling. That's atypical during a loss of consciousness." She let that hang a beat. "I have enough to detain an interview. If there's an innocent explanation, we'll hear it there." Vivian laughed once, brittle. "Detain? For tea?" "For an ongoing investigation into endangering an elder," Morales said, calm as a clock. She stepped closer, gentle but immovable. "Mrs. Cross, please stand." Michael re-entered from the kitchen, towels still in his hands. "What's happening?" he asked, throat dry. Morales spoke clearly. "Vivian Cross, you are being detained pending further investigation into the attempted harming of Thomas Miller. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to an attorney." She paused, giving space for comprehension rather than theater. Vivian's mask cracked, then hardened. "You'll regret this," she said to me, voice low. "You think you've won because you invited an audience?" I met her stare. "I think Lily deserves a house where bedtime isn't a reckoning," I said. My voice surprised me, steady, not loud, like a switch thrown. Morales took Vivian's wrists, not rough. The soft click of metal sounded louder than sirens. Lily stood at the bend of the stairs, one hand on the railing, eyes wide but clear. Vivian looked up, a flicker of calculation, then away. She said nothing to her daughter. Morales nodded to her partner waiting at the door. "We'll go now," she said, then turned back to the room. "Mr. Miller, we'll follow up this afternoon. Miss Brooks, thank you. Mr. Miller, please do not accept food or drink from anyone until we close this loop." The detective stepped over the threshold with Vivian in tow. The front door whispered shut. The house exhaled. Michael didn't speak. He set the towel down like it weighed too much. His eyes were fixed on the space where his wife had been, or maybe on the edge of a future that had just changed its shape. Morales popped her head back in, almost an afterthought, but not. "Mr. Miller," she said, "one more thing. We'll need to talk to your son." Her gaze slid to Michael, not unkind. "Now." Detective Morales seated Michael at the dining table. No cuffs, no show, just a legal pad and a pen. Lily drifted from the stairs and stood against my side, small and solid. "You're not under arrest," Morales told Michael. "You can stop at any time." He nodded, towel still in his hands like proof of usefulness. "Did you know your wife was pressuring your father about his will?" He stared at the wood grain. "She said it was responsible, that Dad needed help." "Did she try to cut out his counsel?" "She didn't trust Peter," he said he would slow things. "Last night," Morales went on, "did she suggest waiting before calling for help?" His jaw worked. "She said the spells pass." The words seemed to hurt. "Did you suspect the tea wasn't just tea?" A long pause. "I told myself not to think about it," he said, voice low. "I told myself stories." Lily's fingers found mine. I looked at my son. "Bravery isn't noise, Mike," I said. "It's saying no when yes would be easier." "I didn't pour anything," he whispered. "You didn't stop it," I answered. Not angry, just true. Morales let the quiet settle, then said, "Cooperating matters. Come to the station, give a statement. Counsel is your right. Choosing truth can mean witness, not partner." Michael nodded, finally setting the towels down. "I'll come." Morales stepped into the hall to call her partner. The house breathed. Michael looked at Lily. "Kiddo." She kept her chin high. "Am I going with Grandpa?" "Yes," I said. "Today, Peter will file for temporary guardianship." Michael flinched and, for a moment, looked 12 again. "Dad, I never wanted." "You wanted it not to be yours," I said. "She made it Lily's." He swallowed. "Tell her I'm sorry." Morales returned with another officer. "Mr. Miller," she told Michael, "we'll go now." At the door, he turned. "Dad." "I'll take care of your daughter," I said. "Take care of the truth." The latch clicked behind them. Lily pressed her forehead to my arm. We stood in the hum of the refrigerator until the clock's next tick found us. "Pack your things," I said. "We're going home." She ran upstairs. I dialed Peter. "File it," I said. "Already drafting," he answered. "Come by in an hour." I looked around the immaculate room that had tried to make us small and saw nothing here we needed. Lily reappeared with a backpack and a steadier breath. "Ready?" I asked. She gripped the strap. "Ready." We stepped onto porch. Ethel was crossing the street, broom tucked under her arm like a flag. "You call if you need me," she said. "I'm watching." I thanked her and locked the door, the click sounding like a boundary. My phone buzzed, a text from Tyler. "Got your alert. Here if you need." I slipped keys into Lily's palm. "You carry these," I said. "They open the right doors." She nodded, shoulders squaring like a weight had chosen a side. We drove straight to Peter and Wayne's office in a low brick building off Burnett Road. The waiting room smelled like paper and coffee, and the receptionist knew our names before we said them. Peter met us at the door, sleeves rolled, eyes clear. "We're filing for temporary guardianship today," he said, already moving. "I'll ask the court for an emergency order custody to you until a full hearing." He sat us at a round table and slid forms forward. Lily traced the edge of a clipboard while I wrote the truths we had lived. Dates, addresses, the shape of last night in plain words. Peter's pen moved with ours, filling the spaces where memory might someday falter. "We'll serve Michael formally," he said, "and note that his cooperation began today." He looked at Lily, not over her. "Your voice matters here." We signed, initialed, breathed. The copier hummed like a calm heart. "Now the will," Peter said. "If something happens to you, what do you want to happen to Lily in the house?" I didn't look at the ceiling for answers. "A trust," I said. "Everything for Lily, managed by you until she is 25. Michael receives nothing until he proves he can protect her, not threaten her. The rest, what we don't need, goes to kids who haven't had a house that chose them." Peter nodded like a man hearing a bell ring true. He drafted as we spoke, clauses like joists, weight-bearing and quiet. We left with copies and a plan heavy enough to steady the day. Next stop was Lily's school. The counselor, Miss Rivera, met us in a room with soft lamps and a box of tissues nobody had to touch. Lily talked in small pieces. Miss Rivera listened in whole ones. She offered a safety plan, check-ins, a weekly group where brave doesn't have to be loud. She asked what Lily needed right now. "Home," Lily said, simple as water. Back in our car, we drove past live oaks and taco stands, the city doing what cities do, carry on. Ethel called while we waited at a light. "I'm bringing over supper later," she said. Tyler texted a thumbs up and a new set of eyes on the doorbell feed. Community looks like casseroles and code, I thought, too. At home, the house exhaled when we unlocked it. Afternoon light fell across the hallway the way it always has, like a promise it intended to keep. I made up the spare room, fresh sheets, the quilt with the yellow triangles, a string of bulbs Lily had once claimed were too childish and now wanted anyway. We ate toast and apples at the kitchen counter because the table still remembered last night. Lily did math while I labeled a folder Guardianship in my careful block letters. Every so often she looked up to make sure I was still there, and every time I was. Near dusk, Peter called back. "Judge signed the temporary order," he said. "Lily stays with you until the hearing. We'll serve notice today." I thanked him and sat because my knees forgot how to stand. Lily watched my face and smiled like the sun had chosen us for a minute, finally. We stood on the porch as the sky went peach and the sprinklers clicked alive. "Grandpa," she said, not looking at me, watching a moth tap the porch light. "Do you think they ever really loved me?" The question landed between us like a fragile cup I refused to drop. I took her hand and, before I answered, listened to the crickets start their night work. Weeks learned to fold themselves into routines. Mornings smelled like toast and pencil shavings, afternoons like grass and the faint detergent of school hallways. Lily took the front steps 2 at a time again. She still glanced back to make sure I was there. I always was. At night, shadows stretched long, then shorter, until they felt like furniture and not visitors. The first letter came addressed in Vivian's precise hand, the loops measured, the stamp straight. Peter had warned me it might. He'd also advised me to hold mail that could derail Lily's breathing. I read it alone at the kitchen counter, the lamp throwing a warm circle on the wood. It was a performance, regret in the right places, blame tucked in the margins, a plea wrapped around a threat without saying sorry. She asked to be forgiven. I slid it into a folder and wrote the date on the tab. Paper remembers. Some truths need time. Michael called twice from a number that didn't have his name. The first time I picked up. He inhaled and said my name the way the old house creaks before rain. He was in a program, he said. He was talking. He was trying not to tell himself stories. He wanted to make amends. I told him I was listening, not deciding. The second call I let ring out. Boundaries are a kind of love that holds. Lily's dreams came in bursts at first, breathing too fast, waking with her palms flat against the mattress. We learned the shape of the night together. A glass of water, the porch for a minute, a question we didn't have to answer right then. Miss Rivera checked in every Thursday. Sometimes Lily said a lot. Sometimes she colored while Miss Rivera talked about how brains protect us by ringing too many bells for a while. Bells quiet down with safe days stacked like bricks. We practiced safe days. Tyler showed her how to check the doorbell log herself. Ethel kept waving from across the street, casserole in one hand, a lemon pie balanced on the other like a pro. We planted rosemary by the kitchen window and didn't cook brisket for a while. Some traditions can rest. One evening, as the sun found the fence slats just right, Lily asked, "Are you ever going to tell me what Mom wrote?" I looked at the folder in the desk, then at her face, steady and still soft around the edges. "When you want the words," I said. "Not before." She thought, then nodded and bit into an apple so loud the dog across the street barked. I decided to wait until her curiosity came from courage, not fear. Waiting, too, can be a kind of bravery. 6 months put rings on the live oaks and freckles on Lily's nose. We took our seats in a courtroom that smelt like old wood and dusted suits. The judge read words that sounded like stones being set where they belonged. Vivian faced the count and took a multi-year sentence for what she chose. Michael, who had cooperated, received a shorter term for his part. Consequences are not revenge. They are fences that keep future harm from galloping back. Peter squeezed my shoulder outside the courtroom and handed me a folder heavier than it looked. "Trust finalized," he said. "The house and assets are held for Lily until she turns 25. You remain trustee. Education is covered. A portion goes to programs for kids who need steady adults." I pictured a house key in a small hand that never had to ask permission to be safe. Life measured itself in smaller wins after that. Lily joined the art club and came home with charcoal on her fingers. She and Miss Rivera organized a Saturday thing where kids painted picnic tables at the park. Tyler taught her to fix a squeaky hinge and to update the doorbell app without me. Ethel started calling herself security, and no one argued. We let laughter come back like a stray cat, slow, cautious, then suddenly entirely at home. On a Sunday evening, I made soup and grilled cheese, because soup is what you give a body that has done hard work. Lily did homework at the coffee table, pencil tapping to a rhythm only she heard. When she laughed at a text from a friend, the sound bounced off the walls and stayed there. The house wore it like light. We didn't talk much about the trial afterward. When Lily asked a question, we treated it like a visitor welcomed it, answered it, let it leave. Sometimes the question was, "Do you miss her?" And sometimes it was just, "Can we get a dog?" For both, I said, "We can think about it." Thinking is a promise I can keep. That night, after dishes and a last look at the lock, I tucked a copy of the trust into the safe with our passports and old family photos. I wrote Lily a letter and labeled the envelope, "Open when you want to know what trust means." I slid it beside the rest. Paper remembers. In the next room, Lily's pencil went quiet. "Grandpa," she called, "do you know how to do slope intercept?" I smiled at the safe. Some questions have easy answers. "Bring it here," I said. "Let's figure it out together." If you've walked with us this far, you know this isn't a story about poison. It's a story about protection. About a 13-year-old who shouted across a table and pulled a family back from an edge. About an old man who remembered that love is not helpless, that it can be firm, documented, witnessed. Here's what I learned when the floor shifted under my feet. Evil doesn't always snarl. Sometimes it smiles and straightens the napkin. Courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it is a child saying don't. Paper, neighbors, and good law make a braid stronger than fear. And safety isn't a fortress we build once. It's the daily choice to lock a door, to answer a hard question, to ask for help. I also learned this. We don't get to pick the storms, but we get to choose umbrellas. Mine looked like Lily's hand, Peter's steady counsel, Detective Morales' careful questions, Tyler's quiet tech, and Ethel's broom held like a banner. Community is not a headline, it's a casserole, a shared code, a porch light left on for one another. Some of you might be carrying secrets that make dinner taste wrong. Tell someone who will write things down. Find a neighbor who watches without meddling, a teacher who hears in full sentences, a lawyer who speaks in joists and beams. You are not a burden for needing safer air. As for us, we still burn the porch light a little longer than we used to. We still plant rosemary. We still check the door twice and then once more, not because we're scared, but because we've learned how to be careful without being afraid. Lily laughs louder now. The house keeps it. And if you want to stay close, there are more stories on our porch. One about the day the doorbell caught more than a package. Another about how a quiet neighbor became a shield. Click follow so you don't miss what comes next. Until then, take care of the ones who put their small hands on yours and say, please. Then say it back in the ways that count. Real love protects children first, especially when family betrayal creeps in. I praise God for the courage that rose in a young voice. I ask God to heal what fear fractured. I trust God to turn pain into strength so family betrayal stops at the door and family betrayal never defines the future. What resonates most with you? Comment below and share this story with someone who needs it.